What is true is that the better the oil is for you when it's good, the worse it becomes when you fry it. So omega-3 and omega-6 are very sensitive to damage. And this is like there's no good oil for frying, but if you're going to fry, the least damage is done with hard fats.
Our loved people, our brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, cousins, colleagues, friends, we should be giving them everything that we can in our arsenal. It's not just one way. There's other ways as well.
So usually people think when they think about water, I'm just going to purify the water, take the toxins out. But even if you take the toxin out with filtration, the frequency of that toxin is still inside the water.
This is Vibe Science, a top 100 wellness podcast presented by the Radcast Network, breaking wellness barriers and making health truly personal. Here's your host, Ryan Alford.
It sounds to me, though, there is no healthy cooking oil then.
There is healthy oil, but there's no healthy cooking with oil.
Yeah. Because they've been, that's been the rage. Oh, peanut oil is better than this. Oh, this oil is better than that. But I'm hearing from you, no oil cooked or fried is good.
What is true is that the better the oil is for you when it's good, the worse it becomes when you fry it. So omega-3 and omega-6 are very sensitive to damage. So if you're going to fry, and this is like there's no good oil for frying, but if you're going to fry, the least damage is done with hard fats. So coconut and tallow and lard, those kind of fats.
And that's 100% contrary to what people, I think if you ask 10 people on the street, they would say, "Oh, I use olive oil for my cooking." And I just heard from you that's the worst you could do.
Well, olive oil is sort of in the middle because it doesn't have any omega-3s in them. They're the most sensitive. Okay. And then omega-6 is only 10%. And omega-3 and omega-6 is the only thing you need to have. You must have from your fat and oil intake. Omega-3
so beef
and omega-6.
tallow, if you're going to do it, is the least harmful.
Is less. Yeah. It's the least worst. It's not better. It's the least worst.
Oh
right?
Man, this is depressing. Then you don't get the depressed.
But then you don't get the omega-3 and 6 that are the only thing from oils that your body has to have. But they have to be treated with care if they're going to support your health.
What about butter?
Butter is a hard fat. So it's you can fry in butter, but you burn the food, you still turn it brown. The brown on food is toxic because you've taken biological material that's supposed to be food and you just burned it.
Right? Melting butter. Is melted butter bad for you?
Melted butter?
Yeah.
Depends at the temperature at which you melt it. Right? So if it's just melted on it, no, it's okay. But it's not a good source of omega-3 and omega-6, which are the two that are essential that your body can't make that you have to bring in from outside.
So how should we be consuming oil and what should we be looking for when purchasing oils that we don't fry with, that we just eat? Yeah.
Okay. So omega-3 and 6 are the only ones that you have to have. There's so many different kinds of fats. Those are the only two, because you can't make them, but you have to have them. And if you don't get either omega-3 or omega-6 long enough, you die. That's how important they are. That's what essential means. If you bring them back when your health is deteriorating because you're not getting enough, you bring back enough before you die, because death is not reversible by definition, right? If you bring them back, then all the problems that come from not getting enough are reversed. So life knows what to do, provided you take responsibility for bringing in the building blocks. That's the definition of essential. Those are the only two. Everything, in fact, you don't need tallow, you don't need butter, you don't need olive oil, but you need omega-3 and omega-6. They should be in glass. If you're really smart, you put a box around it. That's what we did. put a box around it to cut the light out because light damages oils. You'll find them in the fridge, in the supplement section, in the natural food stores, and you can buy it on Amazon as well. And the only oil that is actually made that way is called Udo's oil.
Hey.
Right? And I started this. I started this in 1986. We started with flaxseed oil. 1994, we made the blend because you also need the ratio between omega-3 and 6 to be right. And most people get lots of 6 damaged, and 99% doesn't get enough omega-3 for optimum health. So the ratio has to be right. You got to bring in more omega-3s. They're 5 times more sensitive to damage, so they're a nightmare to work with. But if you give them the care they need, they do awesome job in your body for brain function, for physical energy. We worked with athletes, 40 to 60% increase in performance in their sport if they did it to exhaustion 30 days after starting to take 2 to 4 tablespoons of oil in their food. You want to mix the oils in the food because that's where they belong. And you can also go back to the seeds and nuts that contain them. Flax is the richest source of omega-3, and every seed has omega-6s in it. So you want to get those seeds unroasted, unsalted, not fried.
I feel like I've heard like the opposing views of like modern versus alternative. I feel like depending on who you talk to, you've heard, they chose the alternative route and it didn't work. And unfortunately, they didn't choose that modern path and it ended poorly. Then you hear the other side, which is we did everything modern and it didn't work. And if we had done the alternative, so you hear both sides of it. I've heard it, I think, and I don't claim to know everything about Steve Jobs, but supposedly Steve Jobs fought the modern routes until it was too late. He went the alternative routes with pancreatic cancer. And then the doc's like, you waited too long. You should have done this, that, and the other. I'm paraphrasing.
Yes.
I think it's difficult, and every person's journey is different. But now that you've gone through it, I mean, where do you lie in that? Like, is it just that you need to find the balance of the two? I mean, where do you fall on those kind of opposing views of what could have, should have been done?
That, by the way, is the multi-billion-dollar question, because
Yes.
I mean, honestly, that's it right there. What do you do? What would I do? What would you guys do if you found yourself sitting in the room across from the white coat?
Yeah.
I think the problem that we all face is that because we're depending on the white coat to give us all the answers and trust them with our lives, we are sometimes not looking at the alternatives. Now, I feel very fortunate that I know about all the alternatives, and I'm practicing some of those just on a prevention basis, but not everybody does. And that's one of the reasons I wrote this book. It's like, guys, you have to make a decision. And ultimately, Eric decided to go the traditional route for the 9 months. He apologized so many times. Once the 9 months and they said, sorry, you're going to die. You've got 6 weeks left to live. That's it. He apologized to me so many times. And I'm like, please don't apologize. It's okay. We are where we are. Now we have to do whatever we can. But magic wand. Okay. If I had a magic wand and I could just wave it across the whole country, right? We would have clinics like Son of Eve on every corner. So rather than little pubs like they have in London, or dairies like they have in New Zealand, we would have these clinics on every corner where you could go for prevention, you can go for treatment, and nobody's getting shut down. That, the authorities aren't coming in, and this still happens. And I'm going to say, I know some personal instances where naturopathic doctors that have been having some success with cancer get shut down. They lose their license. Their clinic is shut down. There was a case where they came in with guns, blazing, and took all the files and computers. It's like, what the heck? What century are we in? Now, I know that, without getting into the politics, there's certainly been a change in administration recently. So regardless of which side of the fence you're on, there might be some changes that we can see soon around this in terms of, are we going to keep closing clinics down that are saving people naturally? My magic wand wish is they stay in place. Allow people to offer the Rife machine. Allow people to offer the biofeedback machines. Allow it all, and have individuals be able to make that choice. Have lots of TV shows and documentaries on this so people can learn more. Okay, my book is just one, and it's a start for some people. I know that some people have told me it's already inspired them to change their lives and their health habits and so on, which is fantastic. But let's really make it a huge effort to get this information out there, that there are alternatives. So I'm not saying don't do chemo radiation surgery. I'm saying for the 2 million people that are going to get diagnosed with cancer this year, this is not people that have got it coming back again and that have been in remission, it's come back. This is not people that have, that are still dealing with it with an active cancer treatment. This is new diagnoses, fresh diagnoses this year. 2025, there's going to be another 2 million people. What if we all said, enough? We're not going to just take the traditional treatments anymore. What else have you got for us? What if 2 million people said no? Imagine that. They said, no, we want to be offered everything. We want to be able to make our own choice, because cancer should be an individual treatment per person. But in this country, I can tell you it's not. They gave him the standard treatment for stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Boom, he got that cocktail. Looked like it was working after 3 months. They kept repeating. Why do you know every 3 months if it's working? That's when the insurance companies pay for the PET scans. But there's other ways without PET scans there's other technology out there that's available to check on this. Even dogs can smell cancer in the body. I know one case where, I know this might be a little bit off center, but this one guy, his dog, normally a great dog, bit him on the hand. And he went and got the bite that handled at the hospital, and for some reason they gave him a blood test. They discovered he had stage 1 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Now, you don't usually find the lymphomas early because they're blood cancers, and it takes a while, goes around the body, starts doing its thing. And by the time we find out you've got symptoms, lumps and bumps and tumors and things, you might be stage 3 or 4. But because he found out at stage 1, he was able to do his natural healing, and he was fine. But the dog smelled it in his body and bit him. So he was, in a way, the dog saved his life, because otherwise he might have been stage 3 or 4, which is what typically happens. So magic wand, we should have access to it all. And please, authorities, if you're watching this, don't shut down the clinics that are having success. Why? Why are you doing that? I don't understand. I know that profit is a factor, but our loved people, our brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, cousins, colleagues, friends, we should be giving them everything that we can in our arsenal. It's not just one way. There's other ways as well. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that there are other things that work. There are treatments out there that work. In fact, let me say this. This is my understanding, that Sanoviv has 24 years of research. They've been trying to give it to the US, and they're not interested. They don't want it. They don't want to know. Sometimes you hear oncologists, let's say someone's doing something on the side. They're doing ozone treatment or hyperbaric, or, they're doing their own IVs. Because sometimes you can't even talk to your oncologist about it. They will put the fear of God into you and tell you, well, that's going to affect the efficacy of whatever we're trying to do, which is unfair, because they really don't know. They don't know.
You know what? I'm going to start where you started, which is actually when you're talking about the 99.9%, the molecules. That we're the smartest water on the planet, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
As human beings, 70% water than 99.9 of our molecules. That alone should tell you that not all water is made the same.
100%.
Yeah. We're blessed in the States. I mean, at least where we live, we're in South Carolina, we have generally good drinking water. It tastes okay. It looks okay. But talk to me and our audience, Mario, about, I think we've hit the high strokes, but just because it's clear and just because it might have tasteless, it's not always what it needs to be.
No, not at all. I mean, we realize that water is an electromagnetic phenomenon, if you can imagine. It changes electromagnetically every single day due to position of the Earth towards the sun.
Wow.
So, and not only that, we realize that water is a broadband absorber, receiver, and transmitter of energy, frequency, and vibration, and it's always going to pick up the most dominant frequency of its environment. So usually people think, when they think about water, I'm just going to purify the water, take the toxins out. But even if you take the toxin out with filtration, the frequency of that toxin is still inside the water. And when you drink it, you're actually introducing it into your system. This is where this technology actually does its greatest job. It completely creates a clean state. It brings the water in a liquid crystalline state. That's the optimum state for all biological systems. And as I mentioned, we tested it short-term, mid-term, and long-term on humans, on plants, on animals, and on environment. And the results were really phenomenal.
Yeah, I'd like to get into that. Talk to me about like the difference you see from, you said double blind, so I imagine there's a control, and then, so regular water, what we're used to drinking, versus analemma water. What were the findings and specific to health benefits?
So our early research, actually in the Netherlands, we owned a huge greenhouse where we tested various plants. This is where the research started. We actually picked up a whole lab by a famous German scientist, Dr. Fritz Albert Popp, and he developed this technology that can capture biophotons. So every single living system exudes these tiny particles of light. The more light a biological system exudes, more vitality it has. So our early research was we watered plants with regular water and with analemma water, this coherent water. And to cut a very long story short, for instance, tomatoes that we grew, they radiated up to 200% more light than tomatoes that were grown with regular water. We always used control, just so that we know. So you can imagine the cellular vitality actually that happens, that was unleashed when you water the plants with this water. So this was kind of our initial research, where we realized, okay, there is something really special here. Let's kind of take a deeper dive. Just so you know, this whole project is 18 years in making, 50 plus scientists over 3 continents working on this.
Wow.
So it's really an undertaking. And
it's a super water.
Yeah, and just so you know, we came out 5 years ago. So most of this time was just doing research, and because we really wanted to be 100%, so that everything that we state, this water actually does. And maybe it's a good time that we kind of jump in the first human study that we did. Since, as I mentioned, this water is an electromagnetic phenomenon, we were thinking, what's the most electromagnetic part of human biology that we can very accurately and very scientifically measure? And it's our brainwaves. So what we did a golden standard study where we took 2 genetically identical twins. We put QEEG equipment on their heads to monitor their brainwaves in real time. Doctor administering the water didn't know which one was which, and twins didn't know which one was which. They just took a couple of sips of water from the glass. And as you would expect, the twin that took a couple of sips of regular water, we saw zero change in brainwave patterns. Everything stayed the same. But now where it gets interesting, almost as soon as the twin that took a couple of sips of NLM water, there was an almost instant better connection between the left and the right hemisphere of the brain, and almost instant harmonizing effect on the brain waves. This was first very powerful and irrefutable scientific evidence that something biologically remarkable actually happens here. Not only that, there is this thing that happens, which is called delta coherence, that usually when people meditate or when they use psilocybin, they get these kind of effects where your entire brain gets connected with itself, so to speak. We actually repeated the experiment 3 weeks later, and we gave NLM water to the other twin. And lo and behold, we saw exactly the same phenomenon, while now the first twin experienced nothing. So this was our first human study, double-blind, that we did. Inspired by the biophoton emission that we talked about and this vitality, we wanted to see how can we measure that on humans, because it's very hard to measure biophoton emissions on humans, because humans are much bigger than a tomato. So it's kind of hard, and it's super delicate technology. So we decided that we were going to measure ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is the primary energy currency of the cell. It's directly responsible for powering of the majority of the processes inside of our body, including muscle contraction, nerve impulse transmission, biochemical reactions. Basically, every heartbeat, every breath, every cognitive function depends on ATP. So we wanted to see what actually happens with ATP levels when people drink this water. So we took a snapshot of ATP levels in humans. Then they drank 1.5 liters of NLM water per day for 2 months without changing anything else in the world. They didn't change their diets, their exercise regime. They didn't use any supplements. So everything basically was at zero. And then after 2 months, we took another snapshot to see what actually happened. And what we saw was 20% rise in overall mitochondrial energy of the body over the placebo. When you calculate the placebo in, that's 1/3. And we're not talking about here Red Bull energy. We're talking about actual mitochondrial energy of the body. This has several implications, if you can imagine. I mean, all scientists now agree that one of the key causes of cellular aging is the decline in mitochondrial function. And we proved that mitochondrial function improves more than significantly, and just by drinking the water. And a lot of people actually don't. People usually kind of connect ATP to muscle performance and endurance. And of course, that's like, this is like the direct correlation, and no questions there. But what most people don't realize, that the biggest spender, by far the biggest spender of ATP, is actually our brain. For a neuron to send an impulse to a neighboring cell, it needs to hydrolyze 1 billion ATP molecules, and there are billions of neurons. So 25% of all of our energy goes just to feed the brain. And of course, people with high ATP levels have much better cognitive performance, and of course, athletic performance, and basically everything else in their bodies work much better, because body has more cellular energy.
Yes. Content discussed on this show is provided for reference and educational purposes. The content is not an attempt to practice medicine or provide specific medical advice. Always consult your personal physician for medical advice and proper diagnosis.
Thanks for listening. This is Vibe Science. To learn more or watch full episodes, visit vibesciencepodcast.com. Here's to discovering your highest vibe.